And I wish I could have heard a little bit more about the transition stuff, but unfortunately, work got in the way this morning. But as Wally mentioned, I'm a hockey director at a youth association. I'm a coach developer for USA Hockey in Massachusetts. And so I do coach training and as part of their certification program. I'm also coaching my son's team. He's a 9-year-old, so it's a group of 9 and 10-year-olds. In the association that I'm the hockey director at, we've got about 500 kids at the moment. So it's a fairly large association.
Which town in Massachusetts?
We're based in Taunton, but we cover a lot of southeastern Mass. We actually have about a dozen towns that kind of fall within our association. We've got, on the order of, I think we've got 5 teams at 8U, we've got 6 teams at 10U, 6 teams at 12U, wow. 5 at 14U. So it's a decent size. We're one of the larger. Next year we'll probably be one of the largest in the state. But we've done a lot. It's interesting. Like USA Hockey right now, they actually put together a really great presentation around position and what is position in terms of offense with the puck, offense without the puck, defending the puck carrier, defending away from the puck, and then the transition between those different roles. So I've been working with this idea of like, how do you communicate that starting from when kids are like 5, 6 years old, and how do you coach that? Knowing that if you assign them positions like center, right wing, left wing, and defense, and you tell them that that's their role, that sends a message versus what the roles of the game actually are. Mm-hmm. So we've been doing a lot around coaching without positions. Starting with the little guys playing their cross ice 4-on-4 with no positions whatsoever, and with my 9Us now where it's playing 5-on-5 full ice because they do that at 10U here. Now we have forward and defense, kind of separated, but the roles are really around like dog on the puck, which is our kind of pressure role, and then we've got foxes who've got to be smart and arrive in the right place at the right time, and then we've got eagles that play above the play but can swoop in at any time. And seeing them be able to, like, when you coach it that way and you design small area games around these roles, and USA Hockey's big on designing small area games with constraints, the constraints-led approach. So for us, the way that we'll do that is not so much around putting in different rules into the games, but we'll manipulate the number of kids, so odd man situations, and then where the puck is placed to start out the drill. So it forces them into different situations, so they have to adapt. And then having situations where other players can join, so it can become an odd man or take somebody away, whatever. But to see these kids play and the way that they transition between roles like seamlessly as 7, 8, 9-year-olds, it's amazing. Like, it's really been a fun couple of years playing around with this, and I've sent a couple of videos off to Wally. I've got some better ones now with the 9-year-olds because they really get it. But it's so interesting to me, this idea of transition, and it kind of started from, or at least in my mind, it started in a conversation that we'd had with a training that Brad McKenzie did, and Wally, you were on that training.
Yeah.
Where he did this presentation of an NHL game, and he looking at 60 seconds, and I think it had transitioned like 17 times. Between different situational, and the tactics that you apply in that situation. It was just so fast. And it's like, we can't be trying to teach these kids, a certain position and a certain, trying to gear them up towards a certain tactic. Obviously, USA Hockey is big on skills and small area games and not teaching like the breakout to 9-year-olds anyway. But like being able to teach them to think and being able to teach them to adapt and to transition and to adapt, not just between transitions of the situation in the game, but transitions between different roles depending on where the puck is and where their teammates are and where the opponent is. It's so interesting to me. So I'm gonna look up your study just to get a little bit more background after the call. But anyway, that's my spiel.
Bjorn,
study is over 30 years old, so it's I'm sure they're more modern and more extensive studies out there now. But at the time, it might have been an eye-opener for some. But the game hasn't changed. There is this transition time that's dominate the game, and you have to be very good there. But unfortunately, the other team is equally good, have equally numbers of chances. So there's more to it than just transition. You have to. And one was talking about the Japanese teams. Yes, they had some skills. They could skate and shoot and pass, but as you said, they were not thinking the game. And I think most of the time it's because we do these drills, not games like you do, drills. And the coach says you swing down here and you're going to get the puck here, you're going to pass it here. And sure enough, every time you swing there's a puck coming at you, and sure enough, there's always a guy standing where it's supposed to do in a drill. And they don't even have to look. They can look at the puck the whole time, and just when by the spot on the ice where they're supposed to receive the puck is the only time they look up, and then they look down at the puck again. But they never learn to make decisions. They never learn to be creative. They just follow those lines, and then we expect them to play in the game after. So if we do drills, they have to be much more game realistic, so the player has to look up and see what's the best solution is, and obviously put it in the game situation as quickly as possible as soon as the skill level is ready for that kind of situation. But then in Japan, then where we couldn't really take our game against the opponent, we only scored goals on power play, and it sounds like bragging, but it's actually disqualifying our own job. Even though it was the Olympics where Gretzky and Messi and those guys played, Japan has the best power play in the whole tournament. With that said, we didn't score any other goals, so it didn't really help us. That was the only time we could score, was when the opponent had 4 opponents. Besides that, we had no tools, no game sense, not enough ability to actually create some kind of offense 5-on-5.
Bjorn, I just wanted to mention, related to that, 1998, the Soviets were our key opponent. We could play them 5-on-5. We matched them 5-on-5, but on the power play, it was impossible. We couldn't defend them. And their skill level and their speed of thinking and execution, I'm wondering how free they were in terms of interchanging a position back in that era. Can you comment on the Soviet game? Because what Al was referring to, I believe, is first, second, third, fourth, fifth player. You might line up in a position, but the reality of the real game of this sport is once the puck's dropped, with the D jumping up, and like one of the things Daryl's sayings is the D surfs to the goal line in the offensive zone. So interchangeability appears to be the thing. Were they interchanging that much back in the 80s?
For sure, because in Sweden we played 3 forwards and 2 defensemen. And what was new back then is that they have 5 units. It was always the same 5 on the ice. And when I say always the same 5, you can read it both ways, because a lot of time it was Makarov, Larionov, Krutov, Kasatonov, and Fetisov. They were on the ice all the time. So, but there were second and third and fourth 5 units too, and the defensemen were just as much involved in making the plays as the forwards were, and that was for us something completely new, and I'm sure it was very new in NHL, because you had very separate way of playing at that time. The forwards were not really capable of playing defense, and most defensemen were only capable of making a breakout pass and a slap shot from the blue line, but any other offense like that was very unique, such as Coffey, and Bobby Orr, and those very unique players. But the bulk of players had a very much limited role if they played defense. They I remember in 1981, and that's might be the best year they had. World Championship is in Sweden, in Gothenburg. So I'm a young guy, and I got the honor to be a volunteer for the Swedish Hockey Federation to diagram all practices for Team USA. And so we were a group to scouts, if you want, for every team, and we should diagram what they were doing. But most of the other coaches were much older than I, so they just said, if you're going to go and watch the Russians anyway, you do the diagram for me. So I basically watched every game and every practice for the whole World Championship. And when we saw the Russians, they have these flow drills where they were going 2-on-1, they came back and it became 3-on-2, they came back, it became 4-on-3, they became back, it was 5-on-3, and they were just going, and you never know if it was Kasatonov, who was the most defensive of them all, if he was leading the attack, or if it was Fetisov who scored on a rebound. You never know. Anything could happen. And I was watching this as a young coach, and I said, there is no way anyone can beat them. There's just no way. And the way it happened was that the last game of the tournament became a final game. At the time, it was not the playoff, it was just points. But if Sweden won, they would have won the championship. And if Soviet Union won, they would have won. So Sweden going to play at home ice with a very strong team because they just beat everyone else in the final games against the Soviet Union. And I thought, well, no, I mean, yeah, if we can keep it close, that's going to be good. And after one period was 1-1, and I said, this is unbelievable. Like, 1-1, I never thought they would be able to keep up with him. Second period ended 9-0. The final score was 13-1. So that's how the difference between the number one in the world and number two in the world at that tournament was at the time. So obviously they said, well, Canada didn't have the best team and US didn't have the best team. So Canada Cup 81 is going to be a true value, how good they actually are, because now they're going to be up against the likes of, whoever were the stars at that time. Remember in the Canada Cup, Canada didn't win. Oh, they did win the first one, but very, very narrowly against the Czechs in 76. So now 81, they came much better prepared. It was not Phil Esposito coming off the golf course to play anymore. It was a prepared team. So obviously the final is against Soviet Union and Canada again. And Wally, remember, it's probably with a broken heart. 8-1. Canada lost 8-1 with, players like Lafleur and Mike Bossy. And Canada had the top four scorers in the tournament, Gretzky, Bossy, Trotti, and Lafleur. But when it came to actually playing as a team, you had 20 scorers on that other side who were able to score a goal each. And one goal stuck in my mind all the time. It's a fourth-line player. His name is Skvortsov. You probably never heard of him, and we never heard of him again. He gets the puck in a penalty kill, and Canada played Guy Lafleur on the defense. So he faked the shot, and Lafleur just took a turn out to the side, and he had a breakaway, and he scored a goal in the shorthanded goal against Team Canada. And I don't think they ever got the recognition for playing a good hockey. They got criticism for being 12 months of training camp and steroids and all kind of accusations, which are probably true. But looking from a just a pure hockey sense, like a game sense, they played a fantastic hockey that we haven't seen since. And we're starting to see things like that again. With players like Crosby and like David, and players that have that complete skill set. They can play defense and forward. They can interchange with anyone and do the job as good as anyone. And so I don't know what the question was from the very beginning. It went off to a monologue, but yes, they could change position because they had the skill set to play defense and forward. Where Guy Lafleur, in my example, was a gifted goal scorer, fantastic goal scorer, but don't put them on defense on the power play because even the fourth line are going to DQ, and that cost you dearly in the competition against a complete team like the Soviet was at that time.
Bjorn, I have a question to Al related to this topic in terms of the free play, overlapping interchange decision making that the Soviets were able to execute. They were, Al, with your group playing small area hockey, it's really difficult to line up at positions, have face-offs and have to line up, and quite often they just change on the fly. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you've mentioned now you're playing whole ice hockey, and you're still coaching decision making and allowing them to play more freely.
Yep.
And you're amazed at the results you're getting. And my point is, I believe that what you're doing, and would relate to the Soviets, this could put them ahead of the Soviets. In theory, allowing young minds to process information and make their own decisions they can develop the speed of their brain far better, given freedom to think and make decisions and interchange without being overly coached to play positionally well. So, Al, where do you think is this going to go? Are you getting any kind of heat from people watching, parents that wonder their kid has to be a defenseman, that kind of thing? Can you comment on that?
So a little bit. I wouldn't say heat, right? But I think the one thing that we did, so we did move to full ice hockey this year. So I do have a little bit more structure than, in previous when we were doing the cross ice stuff, in that we've got forwards and defense. Now, in terms of forwards and defense, like I think every kid on my team has played defense and forward this year. But within the roles that we've established, like the kid could become a forward during a shift, and they know they understand sort of the concept behind what they're trying to do when they're out there. With the parents, absolutely, they have a very different idea of what position is, right? So the very first thing that we did while we went through that mission statement exercise that you had provided, and I had a fairly detailed presentation put together with what we were trying to do and why, and how we are talking to the kids and the kinds of things that we're saying. And we've used those as catchphrases all year, right? Like, I don't know how many times over the course of this year the kids have, we've kind of gone through and done a little bit of a cheer. Like, when they have the puck, we're all on defense. When we have the puck, we're all on offense. Closest to the puck is the dog. The next two are the foxes. What's the fox's job? Fox is smart, get in the right spot at the right time. What's the eagle's job? Like things like that, like over and over and over again. And then to play around with it in practice and stuff. So the parents hear it. They heard it from the get-go, and then they hear it every day in the in the locker room when we're there talking, because again, we kind of go through this every practice to kind of get kids thinking that way. And even still, you hear the odd parent who will yell something from the stands about, get on your own side. We were playing pond hockey the other day in practice, and one of the parents was yelling, defense! So I came over to the glass. I said, there's no defense on pond hockey. We're all on offense. We're all on defense. Anyway, it was, we had to laugh over it. But, you gotta address that. And you can have fun with it with the parents too. But honestly, like when they see it, because again, I would say our team is, we're smaller. We have probably I would say more late developers on my team than early developers, playing against teams with primarily early developing kids. Like, we're small. We're very small compared to some of the teams we play against. We have two that are actually too young to be playing in the league, but because they're twins and they have an older brother on the team, they ended up there. And we're having a lot of success. Like, I think we're, in terms of like success, we're in second place in our league. We went out and we played a team last week, and they played the concepts to a T. Like, they really did a good job. And the parents all afterwards were saying, oh, it's a great game. But when you look at, like, when I go to Live Barn and I clip it out, you can find like very, very clear examples of the kids playing a 1-2-2. You can find very clear examples of the kids playing a 2-1-2. You can find clear examples of a 1-3-1. Like, all these things that are actually like very, like, really tactically sound. You can see it come out, and the kids are the ones that are deciding to do that. Like, we never told them to do that. We never told them to, go 1-3-1 and get the puck to the bumper. Like, we've kind of played around with that kind of thing in practice, like with small area games and encouraging that kind of thing to happen. But, it wasn't like we sent them out there that shift to do that. They just evolved, right? So, and we see them making those decisions. Like, if it's a time to be a little bit more conservative, we'll see a clear 1-2-2. Or if it's a time to be a little more aggressive, we'll see, 2-1-2 kind of evolve. And it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, even though we've delineated between forward and defense this year, like, all the kids are, like, in that last game, I think we had 3/4 of the team move between one and the other, like, on the bench when we sent them out. And then during the shift, obviously things kind of evolved. But, like, at this point, all the kids, I would have no problem putting any kid on send them out for a face-off on D in our zone. None. That's what I should.
Before Mike speaks, Bjorn, I think that Al is experimenting, and on the advice, everything we do is based on our life experiences and the people we interact with. And he's been privy to Daryl Belfry's presentations, and he's working with kids. And so, your reaction to that, Bjorn, in terms of what he's doing, can you comment?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you said that they might overtake the Soviet Union. I think the way you expressed it. I think U.S. already have. I think U.S. has an extreme success with their development system. When you watch their junior teams, the male and the women, I mean, they tend to me to be the best skaters in the tournament all the time. That seem to be the most complete players. And I think they come a long, long way, and they play a way. And maybe that's partly why I think the game is changing, because U.S. has brought a creative and athletic team approach to it that was lacking for decades. So I think they're already there. I don't think they need to worry too much about playing games on any age level with the former Soviet Union or with Russia. Maybe if they occupy Ukraine and get a few more players, they might be better again. But right now, I think US have passed them already. The other thing is, I have a tough time myself to teach in small area games as the main tool. I always need to work on the skill that you will need, and then put them into a game situation to execute that skill. So for me, it's always have to be a balance for plays that you actually need to do or need to learn to be able to do in a game, and then try them out in a game situation like a small area game. And I know some really good coaches can figure it out with primarily small area games, but I was never successful in that. I had to work on the individual skill and then hope that they can use that skill in the game situation. So I think there's a middle way that worked better for some, and I don't think I'm unique being unable to teach too much through the area games, small area games. But I know another coach. Who was that? Yeah, he was a captain on the Canadian Olympic team in '76, I think, or maybe even '80. Ron
Von Karpen?
Davidson. Ron Davidson?
Yeah, Ron Davidson, yeah.
Yeah, he had some hockey program going on for kids for a long time. I think he lives in the Ottawa area. And he taught everything with area games, and he was very passionate about it, and he had good solutions for everything they need to learn. So I know it's possible, and I don't say he's the best, but he's one of the guys I talked to when this was a new thing, and he had a lot of experience with it early in the development stage of this method. But I was never able to implement it too drastically. I needed the guys to understand which skills we were looking at and how to do it properly.